I'd like to invite our first speaker, Gibson Biddle, Gibson joined Netflix as the VP of Product in 2005. In 2010, he became the Chief Product Officer at Chegg. He took the company public in 2014 and then became a teacher and advisor and also a speaker in 2015. So he now teaches graduate level entrepreneurship at Stanford and product management at Dartmouth. Join me in welcoming Gabe.
This is actually my 8th Product Tank city. I like to travel a lot. Today? Not today. I tried to do a double, but I couldn't quite make it work. So I am going to start with a juicy quote. Customers are always beautifully, wonderfully dissatisfied, even when they report being happy and business is great. Even when they don't yet know it, customers want something better. And your desire to delight customers will drive you to invent on their behalf. Now, I got interested. I joined startup with a proof of concept and helped them to scale. And I'm always interested in these things that help provide a true north for everybody, so everybody is going in the same direction. And mission, and vision, and culture, strategy is helpful. But the coolest thing I found is this idea, if everybody's maniacally obsessed on satisfying these unsatisfiable customers, they keep driving you in the right direction. So I'm going to test that a little. I'm going to dive into my first piece of consumer research tonight. How many of you are Netflix members? How many are paying? All right, now I want you to think. How much do I like Netflix? So its scale is 0 to 10, where 0 sucks and 10 is great. So think of your number, and then let me know. How many of you would give it a 9 or a 10? Good. And how many would give it a 7 or an 8? Good. And how many would give it a 0 to 6? That sign of unsatisfiable. What do you want more of or better of? Oh, I like. No, it's the gentleman behind you. I'm giving 6. He's given 6. And he can't articulate to us what could be better. And this is the hard part about this. How about you? Free. Okay? Most folks will say, I want all of HBO's content, right? And other folks will say, I want this cool feature that only me and my roommate will use, okay? And the job is to figure out which of these things are important or not. But this is typically, I just use AR and VR for my little glasses thing, and I calculated NPS on the fly, okay? But typically it's in the high 70s. Anything in the 70s I describe as dance on rooftops from this score. I started my career and I got into this idea of customer obsession. I'm older than dirt, and when I started working in Electronic Arts as a producer, I was building Bang Bang Shoot 'em Up games, and I read all the letters from all the gamers. And my job was to satisfy them. And I got no insight, right? And then I went on to build this is my first hit product. It was Sesame Street Elmo's Preschool. Oprah Winfrey threw free Elmo Willful Muppets, these Muppets, onto the stage, and because of that, everybody and their brother wanted to buy this product. And then sold that company to this dude. Do you guys recognize him? Yeah. It's Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. And then we sold that to the Learning Company. And in all this time, I was maniacally customer focused. I was working to satisfy customers. I was very competitive. I had a photograph of my competitors on my desk. That's what I had learned in business school. And then the fascinating thing that happened was we sold the company for $3.5 billion. This is how Kevin made his money. And 2 years later, the company was worth $50 million. The whole industry had imploded. This educational software market It was a fad. I started, oh, that doesn't feel good from a career point of view. And then I started thinking about how could I help to invent a new industry. And in 2005, I met Reed Hastings. You guys all know what DVDs are, correct? Okay, good. So this was a DVD by mail business, and he really asked two questions of me. The first was, Gib, can you delight customers? This was more than satisfy. I said, Reed, I built Elmo's preschool. And luckily, his kids had used that software and were delighted. And then the second question he asked was, can you do consumer science? And luckily, I knew what he meant. And what he meant, I had asked him, Reed, what do you want your legacy to be? And he says, consumer science. And I said, okay, tell me more. And he said, well, folks like Steve Jobs have this inherent sense of style and fashion and what will be wanted in the future. And I'm just kind of a geeky engineer. And I can't divine that, but if we can create systems where via consumer research, via qual, quant, survey existing data, and the big dog A/B testing, we can create this let's test it mentality where we can discover what will delight customers in the future. And I got the job, thank goodness, okay? And this began the sort of journey for me, and there's two journeys here. One, this is what Netflix looked like at the beginning, and designers in the house will confirm that it sucked, right? So for $4, you could get a disc. There was 4,000 in the catalog. It would magically arrive in your home in about 6 days. And now I'm oversharing. This is what my website looked like last night. Okay? And now you get a strong sense of my movie tastes. And the second, thank you very much. That was my 6 over there. The other part of the journey here was from my early career where I had learned to satisfy customer, to listen to what they said, and to compete against different folks in this world of customer focus. And it was a good thing, and it was important. But the second part of the journey was to go to this next place, which is about customer obsession. The goal is to delight customers. The goal is to experiment with what are the things that will resonate in the future and delight customers, and then to invent all new categories. Today it's called Internet TV, where there's not that much competition. And this is the world of customer obsession. So I've got 3 chapters for you today. The first is, I call it the DHM model. The second is I'm going to talk about this the consumer science technique in one area, how Netflix became a personalized website. And then the third thing that I'm going to do today is we're going to use a case. Should Netflix send a free trial reminder at the end of that first free month, letting you know that you're about to start paying? That's a real question, and Netflix needs our help tonight. So we'll do a case. So the DHM model. The way I think about my job, it is simple. My job is to delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. And this is what I've been doing for about 20 years, these 3 things together. And I'm going to share with you some of the nuance. So the first balancing act was the idea of delight versus margin. So when I first started at Netflix in 2005, the number 1 requested feature, and I've grown to be very nervous when I hear that phrase, what customers want. They wanted the new release DVDs the next day in the mail. So back in those days, a movie would come out in the theater, and 3 months later it'd be available on DVD. And then the challenge for us is 100,000 customers wanted that DVD, and we only had 50,000 copies. So many of you had to wait 2, 4, 6, 8 weeks to get that expensive new release. And this is what they wanted. And the question was, would they value it? So we created a test cell, the perfect new release experience. So if my unsatisfied friend who gave it a 6, he was in this test cell, one of 10,000 folks. He would add a new release DVD to his queue, and it would show up. That's the way Americans say it. It would show up the next day in the mail, all right? And so this was the test. There's 10,000 folks that are getting this perfect new release experience, and everybody else is getting the normal. Sometimes it shows up in a week, 2, 4, 8 weeks, whatever, later. So my first question, do you think folks in that perfect cell retained a little bit better, were a little less likely to cancel? And there's really, you can answer the question one of two ways. No difference, or it improved retention. So how many believe there's really no difference in this perfect test cell? And how many believe it would improve retention? Good. Oh, my other question is always, how many of you have arms? Well, let me tell you what happened. It did improve retention, but by just a little bit, a surprisingly small amount. And if you do the math here, we knew we'd save 5,000 out of these million customers, and the math, the way that we thought about it, was this was worth $1 million. And that was the 5,000 saved customers times their lifetime value, which was $100, times 2. We doubled it. And this was to double down on delight, to encourage everybody in the organization to try to delight. And the idea was you'd be delighted by this new release experience, and you'd tell a friend, and we'd bring that friend in for free. And so we put a real premium on creating that delightful experience, just in the way we thought about this. So the question was, how much does it cost to deliver that delight? It costs $5 million. So should we launch this to all, or hold the phone and not launch? How many don't want to launch? The math just doesn't work. And this is what we concluded, right? Now we could argue about that multiple, but we didn't have a ton of money, and we couldn't be giving away this service. And what we learned is customers did not value it as much as they said they did. I know you all want to stream HBO stuff, and you're happy paying $11, and if I told you you get everything from Netflix plus all the HBO stuff, and it would cost $27, you'd go, never mind, okay? And this is that balancing act between delight and margin. So there's one other notion, and that is hard to copy. I have a bright product manager. His name was H.B. Mock. He'd come to me. He was so excited because the insight was if you put a happy family on the couch, the non-member page would convert better. More people would click the red Start Now button. And I'd be like totally delighted for HB with this insight. And then I nicely explained that I'd give him super bonus points, which Michael worked with me at Netflix. He's the photographer over there. He calculated the value of super bonus points was nothing, but they were sort of symbolic. If you could do things that were hard to copy, that Blockbuster couldn't copy within a month. So I want you to think for a moment about what's hard to copy today about Netflix. And so in our thinking, we were always trying to delight folks. We were thinking about the margin and that balancing act, but we were always maniacally focused on what were the things that could be hard to copy. So what is hard to copy about Netflix? Original content. What else? Data. Tell me more about the data. What kind of data? Personalization, a unique technology. What else? The user base, which is large. 130 million folks. That's a good thing. What else? The what? The special button on the remote, which really what is meant there, any device that you buy today that's a television or connected to a television will magically stream Netflix. A very good thing. And yes, there is a special button on the remote. There's only one thing that's forgotten. It's always forgotten. What else is hard to copy about Netflix? The brand. You trust it. You give it, or at least you give your ex-girlfriend's credit card every month, okay? So these are the things that are hard to copy. The network effect comes with all the device manufacturers in the world are on the platform. Personalization is a wonderfully unique technology, and Netflix can afford to spend $300 million on the crown because of their economy of scale. Those 130 million people, let them spend to the tune of $8 billion this year against poor Hulu's $3 billion, okay? So these were the various theories and hypotheses about how Netflix could do it all, how it could delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. And I've got a bunch of theories, and many of these took 2, 3, 4, 10 years to prove or disprove. And I want you to think for a moment, what percentage of the time did Netflix get it right? Do you have guesses? 10%. Other numbers? Yeah, that's a great guess. It's about 50%. In fact, it's exactly 50%, because I put the red. Michael actually worked on the theory that we would create friends. You would get great movie ideas from your friends. And the problem with it is your friends have sucky movie tastes. So it failed, okay? Original content was a failed experiment in 2008. It was Red Envelope Studios. But then when we were bigger, and when the company was bigger in 2013 with that economy of scale, House of Cards was a big success. So we got it right about half the time. And so this is my theory on what it takes to be a successful company. The secret to success is high cadence failure. So if you look at these different companies, the ones that are winning have got lots of mistakes and lots of failure, and they get over it. And they've got this really incredibly high cadence to all the experiments. So now what I'd like to do is take you on to the second chapter of consumer science. And I want to focus on just one part of what Netflix does for you today, which is the personalization. Magically predicts your movie taste. And consumer science is just a fancy way of saying you form a hypothesis, you experiment. I gave you the A/B test with new releases. You get the data results, and then you apply some human judgment as to what you should do next. And this was the theory. But the critical part was that you have these 4 sources of research or consumer insight. So I actually used a survey today, the Net Promoter Score, with all of you. That's a survey. Existing data, you dig in the dirt of existing data around the business and customer behavior to form hypotheses about what you'll test in the future. Qualitative, fancy word for focus groups. And then the big dog, of course, is A/B test. Now, each of these has got strengths and weaknesses. The problem with surveys is people lie. They just do. The problem in qualitative is people lie. Tell me your favorite movie. Oh, that would be The Shining. And they don't confess to Paul Blart Mall Cop. Okay? So each of these sources, and a challenge with A/B tests is you can't test everything. And so this is the part of consumer science, is using the right techniques at the right time. And I'm going to show you how we blended all of these together in the world of personalization. So the concept of the fog of war is a lot of these things might be obvious to you today, but in real time they're not. And I'm going to do a series of pop quizzes with all of you. And even based on your knowledge today of what Netflix is, you're going to get it wrong. I'm just trying to introduce you to how scary and hard this can be. So this is what Netflix looked like in 2005. Note, there is nothing personalized about this experience. It is all editorially driven. Netflix first, that was that early experiment in original content that failed. And I want you to notice the tab called Recommendations. And if you're interested in personalization, never, ever, ever, ever use that word. Would you recommend that somebody go out on a blind date with someone? You wouldn't. You say, you know who you might like? Can I suggest? You might enjoy an evening. This is how humans talk to each other. It turns out that people don't want this process delivered via AI and machine learning with recommendations. So I've given you an insight already. Now, in starting in the fog of war, we said, okay, what is our strategy going to be in this personalization area? We had a number of them, and I've actually forgotten the failed theories and hypotheses. So these are 4 that mainly worked, and I'll show you which one didn't. But the idea is we'd get explicit data. We'd ask you, what do you like, not like? We'd get the implicit data. In an era of streaming, we thought we would learn a lot by what you chose to watch and didn't, what you went into for 4 minutes and then quit. And then the theory was we'd get to know you and everything about your movie tastes, and we'd know everything about the movies, and we'd magically connect them together via different algorithms and presentation layer techniques. And there was another theory that over time, we would help you to find better and better movies. They would have higher and higher average ratings, and because of that, you were more likely to retain with the service. And the important thing is, against all of these strategies, we had a variety of projects. These projects would take 6, 12, 18 months, and they were really trying to prove out the theory that you guys can see on the left. And I'm going to share some of these projects. And the really critical thing is at any moment in time, we could measure whether we were succeeding or failing on these strategies through proxy metrics. And so a variety here. I want you to think for a moment. This first one is called P2 greater than equal to 50. What percentage of members at the end of their first 6 weeks with the service have rated at least 50 movies? That's going to be my pop quiz. What does this head shaking mean? So look at the homepage for a second. Someone has just returned Fast Food Nation, and if you click on one of those 5 stars, give it a 3, no, give it a 4, give it a 5, no, wait, give it a 2. We'll recommend 2 other movies that are similar to that. What's your guess on this number? It's between 0 and 100. What percent of folks after 6 weeks have rated at least 50 movies? 5%. 5%. We've got an even more cynical person right here in front of me. Do we have any youthful optimists in the room? 70, I've got my youthful optimist. Where are you? 80, somebody give me 40, give me 30. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the number. Oh, by the way, I want you to notice that recommendations tab. Now it says movies you'll heart, which designers say is fugly, which I think is a combination of funky and ugly, okay? But I noticed that little nuance there. So the answer is we got close to 30%, okay? And this was our idea was if you rated movies with the service, it was a proxy for your enjoying the benefit of the movies you got. It was a proxy, implicit signal that you valued the personalization you were doing. So now I'm going to show you how we did it. Remember that little movies you'll heart thing? People would click on it. Go figure. And then they would go on a ratings jag. And it was typically while they're waiting for their first DVD arrive, they would rate as many movies as they could. And we did a great job of bringing up movies that we thought they watched. This was called the Ratings Wizard. And this was a significant driver to get the explicit data that would fuel our matching. Another pop quiz. This is Kristen's my wife in her 50s. Kelsey's 22, Brittany's 20. I'm somewhere in my 50s. And the question is, should the algorithms be informed with all of our age and gender? Will that improve Netflix's ability to predict what movies you'll love or not? So, how many believe that age and gender will help predict movie tastes? And how many people believe it won't? Wow. What's your thinking? You're a no. It's not going to help.
It's not going to help.
It's not going to help. Why isn't it going to help?
It's oversimplifying. It's
oversimplifying. And are people's movie tastes complex or simple?
Depends on the person.
Oh, it still depends on the person. Well, let me give you the answer. There's one question first. Can we get the data? And it turned out we would just ask them with this really shitty piece of art. People would give their birthday the stuff that we needed. 90% of the people just gave us the data. Awesome. And we added it to the algorithm, and it did not improve the predictive power in any way. And I'm going to let you know how we measured it. We did it through this animal called root mean squared error. It's a very fancy way of saying you enjoyed Hotel Rwanda and The Shining 4 and 5 stars. We predicted it would be 4 and 5 stars. We were perfect. And that would be an RMSE of 0. So this is one of those things, the lower it gets, the better. And we informed the algorithms did not do any better. But this is an important metric over time. And you can see we got better and better at guessing people's movie tastes. And this brings us to the big dog early algorithm, which is called collaborative filtering. I love the echo here. So the idea here, this is called the quackle. Everybody knows what a quackle is, right? The quackle is the QAD confirmation layer. So you would add a title, and it would confirm that you just added a title to your queue. And at that moment, it would say, here are some other movies you might enjoy. So because you liked Icon, we think you'll like E tu Mama Tambian. I just butchered someone's language, okay? But the idea here is this was all math. Because you liked those two, Shining and Hotel Rwanda, you liked Hotel Rwanda and Shining, and you like another movie. What's it called? Pulp Fiction. We think you'll enjoy Pulp Fiction, and that's how collaborative filtering works en masse. And this was a substantial driver. But recognize it gives you no insight whatsoever about why you'd like a movie. And there were weird situations. Because you like Star Trek and Star Wars, we think you'll like Madeline, the little French girl. Like, what? Okay? And then we had another little problem. We had one engineer named Stan Lanning working on this algorithm. That's all we had. So we crowdsourced it. Does anyone remember the Netflix prize? So the offer was $1 million to anyone that can improve RMSE by at least 10%. And after about 3 years, we paid up. We paid the $1 million. But you can get some insight right away about some of the initial learnings we had just by the team names. So first, you notice there's some Seinfeld fans out there with Vandelay Industries. Okay? It's funny to me. But look at Team 4, Opera Solutions and Vandelay United. Would somebody jump out of the gate naming their team that? What do you think happened? They merged two teams. And what was going on was they learned that if you weren't number one on the leaderboard, they would look around at the teams that were near them, they'd combine all their algorithms together, and they'd magically jump further ahead. And that was one of the first insights. The more algorithms that you blend, the better, from the Netflix prize. I'll tell you the second insight. Remember all those ratings that Netflix got during those first 6 weeks, during the ratings quizzes and Rating Jag? They weren't nearly as valuable as the ratings of the movies you watch while you were on the service. So people were sort of using their foggy memory to remember all the titles in the past. These were the two insights we got right out of the gate. And something exciting happened. We tested the algorithm to see if it would improve retention. How many believe it improved retention? How many believed it didn't? And how many lost your arms? It did not help. Now, designers and product managers of the world, rest in peace, humans are still needed. The insight was you needed to do combinations of algorithm and different presentation layer techniques to have meaningful progress. Now, a funny thing happened. How many of you know about the Music Genome Project over at Pandora? So there were 80 musicologists tagging Jack Johnson, surfer dude, folksy music, acoustic guitar, enjoyed by men that are in their 50s, okay? That's how they would tag it. And it worked for them. They actually learned from us the power of collaborative filtering. They didn't believe in popularity until then, so they blended, they won. We hired 50 movicologists in LA, and they tagged all these different attributes, and guess what? It worked. Now, for the first time, something makes sense. We think you'll like cult comedies from the 1980s, Gib, because you like, including Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Or because your kids liked Up, we think they'll like Dumbo. That makes sense. So the idea of how important it is, and this algorithm was called category interest, of providing context to people in understanding their choices. Now, our job was to make it easy for you to find movies you'll love. And our metric for that was what percentage of members add at least 6 DVDs to their queue. And you can see we made it simpler and better and easier, and everything went up and to the right, which is awesome. And then it started to drop. Why did it drop? Because of streaming. So look at our metric for that. We launched with 300 sucky titles in January of 2007, and we pounded away at it, right? And the metric here, 15 minutes was the smallest TV episode, the smallest increment of value. And you can imagine around 2010, what happened is the second tab of the site was all streaming, and the homepage was DVD, and we swapped the two. And then it was game on for streaming, streaming, streaming. And then something even more exciting happened. For the first time, Netflix could expand internationally because it no longer had to create those damn hub and spoke systems with the post office. Streaming, wow, you can start going into countries all over the world. Which brings me to the next pop quiz. Does it help the algorithm to know that you are French? Les plus gros succès sur Netflix. That was bad, right? Okay, how many believe it's helpful for the algorithm to know you're French? Good. And how many believe the opposite? What's your thinking? Yeah.
French people are all different too.
Ooh, she has learned something from the age and gender discussion. Movie taste is remarkably unique. It really doesn't matter where you live, what country. And that's true. It does not help the algorithm to know you're French. Wow. All right, so now it's game time. Rapid expansion worldwide. This little company called Facebook had been out there. And it created this metaphor of thumbs up and thumbs down. So Netflix tests it. Do they get more movie taste data with thumbs up and thumbs down when they did with the damn 5-star system? How many believe they did? Yes, that is what happened. Twice as much with this simple gesture. Now, we knew that. We knew the problem with 5-star is you, like, did I mean 3 or 5? 7, like, you just sort of forgot and moved on. So what about the stars? You've got billions of stars. What do you do with them? It's a real problem. So remember that theory that over time we would help you to find more movies that you would enjoy. Average ratings, in fact, did go up over time, but we could find no evidence that that actually improved retention. And this starts to beg the question of, what does movie enjoyment mean? It's fascinating. Apparently, people enjoy watching Paul Blart Mall Cop and Adam Sandler Leave Your Brains at the Door comedies. And they rate them 3 stars, but it's a good part of their experience and why they stick with the service. And the only reason they say they love Hotel Rwanda or Schindler's List is they want to look smart. And they probably talk about documentaries, okay? But as it turns out, the stars and just having higher average ratings is not important at all. So look carefully at what Netflix does today. It says that I am a 98% match with casino. It's not making any judgment about whether it's good or bad. It's just saying that I will enjoy it. And the stars, the poor stars, are dead. So now think about the history of personalization. In the early days, we were helping you to find, we had 100,000 DVDs, the ones that we thought you would like that also are a little cheaper. They were not expensive new releases. When we launched streaming, there were 300 sucky titles. We hoped through personalization we could find the 3 to 5 that you might like. And then an era of original content, we know, Netflix knows everybody's movie taste in the world, and they're making investment decisions. Do we think that 80 million people will watch Stranger Things? You can spend 300 million on that. Do we think 20 million people will like BoJack Horseman? Anybody with me? BoJack? Yeah. Okay, we'll spend 30 million on that. They're sort of right-sizing in the investment through all the insight that they've gained about people's worldwide movie tastes. Is this hard for those bastards from HBO to copy? Very. Is Netflix releasing any of its data? No way. Nobody knows, what's streaming and not. All right, so I've given you a couple of models, this idea of delighting customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways. And I've had you think about the power of obsessing over your customer through focus groups, A/B tests, the existing data, and obsessing over this concept of doubling down on delight. So now we're going to apply it to a case. In all of its life, Netflix would collect your credit card at moment one. Then you would enjoy the service. And most of the last bunch of years, it's been for 1 month. And then you hit 1 month, and then it hit your credit card. It probably said, hey, we just hit your credit card. But it didn't say your free trial is about to end. And I'll tell you why this idea came up. Customer service was getting a lot of phone calls from people on day 32 and 33 saying, oops, I forgot. And they'd say weird things like, I never intended to pay, and I wanted a free month, or, and they say some nice things like, it's summer and I really shouldn't be binge watching right now. But there were a lot of phone calls, and phone calls cost money. And then in qualitative, believe it or not, there are some people out there that have not joined Netflix. They are fence sitters. And the easiest way to get folks to try it is say, it's okay, you can cancel anytime. So that claim is super important in a qualitative setting. Just a couple of things to ground you in data. If 100 people hit that page, what percent do you think will hand over the credit card and enjoy the free trial? What percent out of 100 will start the free trial when they see this page? 40 and 3. I love it. So the 3 is darn close. It's just really surprising. It's a very small number. They didn't realize that they had to have a credit card, or somebody said, hey, Gib, it's dinner time, and they went on to the next thing. And then the second piece of data is what percent of members at the end of their free month convert into paying customers? 80. I hear some very high and I hear some 80. It's a great guess. It's 90%. I like the wow. Test it, right? Let's test it. Does it change customer behavior? They get an email, your free trial is about to end. They get a notification on your phone, it's about to end. Personalized homepage says it's about to end. Any way possible, your free trial is about to end. Does it change customer behavior? Okay. Well, how many believe that this is probably going to cause some people to cancel within that window? How many people believe that's true? It's a good guess. So it turns out that 90% drops down to 85%. Okay? And because of that, Netflix is going to lose 60 million. So now have you thinking, I am the product manager. This is my decision. What will I do? Lose 60 million. You get 5 million back because nobody's doing the phone calls. So you're only going to lose 55 million bucks. What is the hard-to-copy thing that's at the core of this issue? What are we really talking about? Let me ask you this. Trust. And trust is inherently a brand issue. How would you feel if I told you Netflix decided to do this? How would you feel about the company and the brand? Would you feel good? Absolutely. So the hard-to-copy thing that this issue is about is the brand. Does it delight people? Would it delight you to be notified of this? And what happens to our margin here? We lose 55 million bucks. Pretty clear. All right, so you're the product manager. You have arms. How many say we should roll this out to all? And how many, oh, it took a little hesitation. Okay, hands high just so I can see them. And how many people want to keep the 55 million bucks? Oh, you're all leaning, you're leaning. Well, let's see how you feel about this one. Who made this decision? Whose decision is this? It is not the CEO's decision. It's not a venture capitalist, those shark bastards, sorry. Whose decision is this? It's yours. You are the product manager. There's a lively debate, and then everybody looks at you and says, what do you want to do? And in this case, she said, let's launch it to all. Now, was this a high-stakes decision or a low-stakes decision? I'm hearing a chatter back and forth. Okay, this is $55 million at a company that now makes $8 billion a year. Is this a high-stakes or a low-stakes decision? Low stakes. Is it easy to reverse? Absolutely. All right? How do you feel about Netflix as a brand for knowing that they do this? Pretty good. So this is that delight customers in hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing way in brand. And the learnings here is delight trumps margin. Now, punk startups can't afford this until a little later in life, okay? And the second is there's a cost to doing the right thing of ethics and brand. In this case, it's exactly $55 million. You can't measure everything. People get stuck on, okay, are those people going to come back a month or 2 or 3 months later? You got to get comfortable with 70% of the information and just making a decision and go. And the last learning here is that idea of debate, decide, and do. Vigorous debate at Netflix. And then after about an hour, look at the product manager. They say, let's do it. And then all the people that thought it was the world's stupidest idea are magically on board. And that's the do part. And that's exceptional part of Netflix culture. So there is one more thing, and this will make you feel good. One last thing required is called patience. It takes a long time to build a great company, product, and brand. Anybody know what happened just before 2012 when Kelsey was not going to college? That was the Quickster split. The company went from 40 billion down to 10 billion. And then after that, just keep getting better. And it did. You know, my theory is it takes about 20 years to become a great company, and you have to sort of be battle tested by bad moments. So when I'm looking around and talking to different companies trying to understand if they're obsessed, what I look for is, do they have, I call them E-staff metrics, a variety of metrics that explain customer behavior in the business so that everybody in the company can understand it. Do they do qualitative focus groups with people outside Silicon Valley? Because we are all freaks, okay? So you gotta go to Cincinnati or some other city I'm going to offend. Okay, I did, sorry. Cleveland, I don't know. Do they have survey data? I was always looking at cancel data, trying to understand why did people cancel. Those were theories and hypotheses about how we might make the service better in the future. And the big dog, the only place where you can measure this balancing act between delight and margin was A/B testing. And the other thing I look for and often do not find is, all right, what are your theories about how you will delight customers in these hard-to-copy, margin-enhancing ways? What are your overall theories and hypotheses, these high-level product strategies that think you will get you to the promised land? So I've got a juicy quote from, my theory is that people believe 100 billionaires more than they believe me. We've had 3 big ideas at Amazon that we've stuck with for 18 years. Put the customer first, invent, and be patient. But the most important thing, focus obsessively on the customer. And with that, I'd like to say thank you. So I'm going to answer some questions, but I have one awkward thing to do first. Now, this is a talk about customer obsession, and I'm a product guy, and you're my customers. So we're at that moment where you're watching a street performer, and the street performer pulls out the hat and everybody runs away. But you are a captive, okay? And I'm not looking for money. I just want you to click on this. You can do it now if you want. Go to www.gibsonbiddle.com, and there's a survey link for you. NPS. Pick a number, 0 to 10. I experiment radically with every talk I give, and later I can tell you what I was experimenting tonight. But anyways, I'd love your feedback. So there's a big picture of me in a video. Right underneath it, you'll say Product Tink, peeps, click on the survey. I'd love your feedback. All right, I have time to answer a couple of questions. Any questions tonight?
Raise your hand and we'll come with the microphone. First question?
How did you guys decide to try original content again in 2013 when it already failed in 2008?
Yeah, the question was, how did you decide to retest original content? It failed in 2000, 2008. You did it again in 2013. First answer is we had retried a number of things that failed in one epoch and then magically succeeded in another. So we just learned to look at things with fresh eyes. There was also, at the time, the theory that we could do better because of our economy of scale. So here was the real problem in 2008. We were trying to be better movie pickers. So we would go to Sundance Film Festival and believe, because we were Silicon Valley freaks, we could pick movies better than people who actually knew how to do that. By 2013, we had the money. House of Cards, gosh, people at the time were into Kevin Spacey, and they loved The West Wing. And that gave insight that maybe the darker version would be a good thing, and it was. And then today, there's enough things that de-risk the investment, and they're making good guesses about how much you'll watch different things. And it's been awesome. The creative community today, they want to work with HBO first, but now Netflix. Netflix gives a lot of latitude. How long should an episode be? Whatever length you want. Do I have to do the damn preview thing? No, don't worry about it. So they just love working with Netflix because they give that freedom. Other questions? Yes, you have a long arm, Jack.
How do you like to balance the market pressure for example, I have a friend who work at Snapchat, so their new version actually got higher user retention rate and more revenue subscription, but like the market reacted very badly, so they even rolled back some of their features. So how would you balance the data and the market pressure?
And when you say market pressure, you're saying investors?
Investors, yes.
Yeah, good question. Okay, so the question, Gib, you're obsessing on the customer, but occasionally you have investors that think what you're doing is stupid, and that's happened. So Netflix was dying to figure out how to get movies instantly to the television, and Xbox wouldn't work with us, Wii wouldn't work with us, PlayStation wouldn't work with us, nobody would work with us. And so what we did is we built our own magic box. And we were about 1 month away from launch, and Barry McCarthy, our CFO, came back from New York, the investors, and said, I don't think this is going to fly. Our stock's going to get hammered because they believe we don't have the capability to do hardware. We can't figure out how to do ships across the Pacific, it's low margin, et cetera. And because of that, we killed it. Now, the lesson there was urgent versus patient. About a year later, we had shown the demo of this magic box, and Xbox was impressed with it, and about a year later, they signed with us. In the first month, they had 1 million members streaming, which was way cool. The magic box that I referred to is called Roku. So we threw those 100 people out of the building, and that was the formation story for Roku, which just went public last year. So it had a happy ending. Other questions? Hang on a second. Okay, I love that. It's like a two. Yeah. I'm supposed to go to the mic. Good. I'm ready.
Okay. How are you going to compete against Disney?
Okay, so I'm not at Netflix now, but my first instinct is that's not a problem. So they have a lot of catching up to do. So Disney is just colossal in entertainment. Netflix is an entertainment company today. Well, part of my reference is I use HBO streaming as a customer, and it's really horrible. Forgive me, I click on a button and it takes about 10 seconds to start streaming. It's really, really hard for me to navigate and find stuff that I want to watch on the Apple TV. So it just takes a long time to develop the technology capability, and Disney hasn't really started yet. Another reference is Hulu that started. I think Hulu's pretty good. It was just in the last year that they had the technology to have different profiles for each member of the family. So I just think it's going to take a long time for Disney to catch up. And then the way that Netflix is thinking about it is they're forward investing in their own original content. 8 billion is the tune that they can spend on. Go ahead, you have a follow-up, or you're going to say I'm wrong. Okay, it's cool. Yeah. I couldn't hear. Yeah, I don't think it's as big as you think compared to what Netflix has. So it's true that Netflix has had access to a lot of Disney stuff, but my guess it's under 5%. So they're going to start from a content point of view at a pretty substantial deficit. Now, maybe if they're smart, they might target young kids and families and grow forward as they go. That would be a reasonable strategy.
We have time for one more question.
One more question. Yes.
So when it comes to branding, Amazon has pretty good brand too, and trust. Do you think that they're going to be a formidable threat for you guys in the future?
Yeah, so I happen to believe that Amazon is much scarier than Disney. They've got a great brand. They are totally obsessive. They create amazing amount of value for all of us. I love Amazon. The one thing about Amazon, and so I've competed with Amazon a number of times, and the way I think about it is it's okay to compete with Amazon as long as what you're doing is not in their top 5. And video is getting there. Let's see, 8 billion investment in original content. I believe that Amazon's up to about 3 or 4. So they're forward investing on original content. I happen to believe that's a more formidable threat. I think Netflix advantage is focus, 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 and this simple experience that I have on the Netflix site, where it's a little bit more confusing when I'm over at Amazon, and I'm having to sort through shoes and stuff to find the movies that I love. All right, you got the memo about my customer obsession, so just visit that. It'll say Product Tank, folks. Click on the survey link. I would just love the feedback. It's incredibly helpful. It's a total gift. So I thank you in advance for that. And it's been great fun to be at Product Tank on World Product Day. So thank you very much, Julie.
Thank you.